What spiritually awake people see that others cannot. Spiritually awake people move through this world differently. They don't just look at faces, they read energy. They can sense the heaviness behind a smile, the truth behind silence, and the stories people hide between words. Where most see form, they feel frequency. They understand that every emotion leaves an imprint, every word carries a vibration, and every interaction reveals what the eyes cannot. They see through illusions because they've learned to listen beyond sound to feel what the soul whispers beneath the noise. When chaos strikes, they don't crumble, they observe. They understand that pain isn't punishment but transformation, that every heartbreak, every loss, every delay is a coded message from the universe pushing them toward alignment. Where others see endings, they see preparation. They know that life doesn't fall apart, it falls into place. The spiritually awake are no longer enslaved by the ego. They see it for what it is, a frightened shadow pretending to be in control. They don't fight it, they watch it. They've learned that peace isn't found in being right, it's found in being real. Their strength comes from stillness, from being present in a world addicted to distraction. They no longer chase validation or comparison, because they understand that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal will last. They see time differently. For them, the present moment is sacred, not something to rush through, but something to live inside fully. They trust divine timing, knowing that what is meant for them cannot pass them by. They've discovered that alignment is stronger than effort, and surrender is not weakness, it's wisdom. They can find eternity in a single breath, meaning in a quiet sunrise, and guidance in silence. Above all, spiritually awake people see unity where others see separation. They've realized that every soul is a reflection of their own, that love is not something to give or receive but something to be. They don't judge others for being asleep, because they remember when they too were dreaming. Their compassion is their power, their awareness their weapon, their love their revolution. They walk this world awake, eyes open not just to what is, but to what is meant to be. They see energy behind faces, not faces behind energy. Spiritually awake people live in a world that most cannot see. Their vision is not bound by physical eyes, it's guided by intuition, by sensitivity to frequencies and emotions that linger beneath the surface. When they walk into a room, they don't just notice who's there, they feel what's there. The tension, the warmth, the hidden sadness, it all reveals itself to them. They can sense when someone's laughter is hollow, when kindness hides exhaustion, or when silence holds wisdom. Where others see faces, they see fields of energy constantly shifting, interacting, and vibrating. They've learned that every thought and feeling carries a frequency, and that energy speaks far louder than words ever could. This perception makes them appear quiet at times, not because they are shy, but because they are listening to the truth that others overlook. To the spiritually awake, energy never lies. They understand that while words can be carefully crafted and masks can be worn flawlessly, the vibration behind them cannot be faked. Every human being radiates what they are within, and that radiation, that invisible pulse, is what the awakened ones feel. When someone speaks from love, it feels light and open. When someone speaks from fear, it feels heavy and contracted. They have trained themselves to trust those subtle sensations, to honor what their intuition whispers before logic interrupts. They can stand beside someone and immediately feel whether that person's energy brings calm or chaos, whether their presence nourishes or drains. And so they choose their company carefully, not from judgment but from self-awareness. They protect their peace the way others protect possessions, because they know peace is the true currency of spiritual life. Seeing energy behind faces also changes how they perceive conflict. When others argue, the spiritually awake don't just hear anger, they feel the pain underneath it. They see that behind harsh words lies fear, behind control lies insecurity, and behind arrogance lies a wounded child. This understanding brings compassion, not because they excuse toxic behavior, but because they can see its origin. They know that unhealed people project their suffering onto others, and that only those who are still asleep confuse pain with power. Instead of reacting, they observe. Instead of fighting back, they choose awareness. They've realized that the moment they match someone's low vibration, they lose their light, and so they remain centered, anchored in calm when chaos tests their balance. The spiritually awake have an almost magnetic sense for authenticity. They are drawn to those who are real, not perfect, but genuine. They admire vulnerability more than victory, truth more than titles. Because they've seen that energy aligned with truth always expands, while energy built on deception eventually collapses. They live with the awareness that every interaction is an exchange of energy, and that each connection either fuels growth or drains it. This is why they vow, you solitude, not because they are antisocial, but because alone they can return to their natural frequency, uncluttered by the energies of others. Silence to them is sacred space, the place where their intuition sharpens and their energy resets. This sensitivity is both a gift and a burden. Seeing energy means they can no longer ignore what others pretend not to see. They feel collective pain, societal disconnection, and the restlessness of humanity's search for meaning. Crowded places can feel overwhelming, not because of people, but because of the unspoken emotions swirling between them. Yet, this same sensitivity allows them to heal, to comfort, and to guide. They can hold space for others' emotions without being consumed by them. Once they've mastered boundaries, they realize that empathy without boundaries becomes exhaustion, so they learn to feel deeply without drowning. When they look in the mirror, they don't only see a face, they see their own energy reflected back. They pay attention to how their vibration shifts with thoughts, habits, and intentions. They know that resentment lowers frequency, that gratitude raises it, and that love transforms it completely. They have discovered that the inner world shapes the outer one, that their energy creates reality before action does. So they work on their internal landscape, first cleansing old emotions, forgiving what they once held tightly, and choosing thoughts that align with peace. They've come to understand that spiritual growth isn't about becoming someone new, but remembering who they were before the world told them to be someone else. To see energy behind faces is to see truth in motion. It's to recognize that every living being is connected through the same invisible field of life. The spiritually awake know that when they hurt another, they hurt themselves, because all energy flows back to its source. This awareness makes them kinder, softer, yet infinitely stronger. They don't need to prove their worth, they feel it. They don't need to chase validation, they radiate it. Their power doesn't come from control, but from alignment. They have found peace not in the absence of noise, but in the ability to remain still within it. In a world obsessed with appearances, spiritually awake people are guided by essence. They've learned that light isn't seen, it's felt. They don't chase beauty, they become beauty by vibrating higher, by embodying truth, compassion, and authenticity. They walk among us quietly, but their presence speaks louder than words. Their calm disarms anger, their kindness confuses cruelty, and their energy heals without effort. Because when you truly see energy behind faces, you stop living on the surface, you start living in truth. You stop reacting to shadows and start dancing with light. That's what it means to be awake, to see not with the eyes, but with the soul. They see the lessons hidden in the chaos. Spiritually awake people walk through storms with their eyes wide open. They don't curse the thunder or run from the rain, they let it wash over them, knowing that every drop carries a message. To them, chaos is not a curse, but a teacher dressed in disguise. They understand that life's most profound lessons rarely come wrapped in comfort. Pain, loss, betrayal, and uncertainty, all of it, they know, is the sacred curriculum of the soul. Where others see disaster, the awakened see direction. They recognize that the universe doesn't break you to punish you, it breaks you to rebuild you. Every ending is a coded beginning, every collapse a divine correction, every delay a hidden redirection. While most people beg for the storm to end, the spiritually awake listen to what the storm is trying to say. They've come to realize that chaos has a rhythm one only the still can hear. When life shatters, they don't ask, why me, But what is this showing me? Because they understand that every challenge is energy asking to be transformed, and every wound is an invitation to awaken deeper. Their pain becomes their compass, pointing them toward the parts of themselves still waiting to be healed. They stop running from discomfort because they've learned that what we resist persists. Instead, they surrender, trusting that beneath the disorder, life is rearranging itself perfectly. They've seen how every heartbreak redirected them toward self-love, how every rejection became protection, and how every loss stripped away illusions that no longer served them. The spiritually awake understand that chaos isn't random, it's precise. It shakes everything that's false so that only truth remains. They don't see it as life falling apart, but as masks falling off. People leaving, opportunities collapsing, old versions of themselves dying. It's not destruction, it's evolution. They know that growth never feels graceful while it's happening. It feels like confusion, isolation, and exhaustion. But that's how transformation speaks, through endings that look like failure and beginnings that arrive disguised as emptiness. They trust this process because they've walked through the fire before and discovered that the ashes always bloom something sacred. Where others lose faith, the awakened find meaning. They know that every experience, good or bad, carries wisdom if you're willing to look closer. When a door closes, they don't chase it. They pause and ask what energy within them attracted that moment. They don't blame the world for their pain, they study it. They see how everything external mirrors what's internal. If someone triggers them, they recognize that the trigger isn't the problem, it's a mirror reflecting an unhealed wound. Chaos then becomes a mirror house of self-awareness, and rather than running from reflection, they face it with courage. Because awareness to them is the beginning of freedom, in moments of confusion, the spiritually awake return to silence. They know that clarity doesn't shout, it whispers, so they withdraw not to escape, but to align. They meditate, journal, or simply breathe until their inner storm settles. And when they emerge, they don't carry bitterness, they carry wisdom. They've learned that what breaks them today strengthens their intuition tomorrow. Each challenge refines their discernment, teaching them to trust energy more than appearances, timing more than control, and surrender more than struggle. They realize that chaos is not meant to destroy them, but to refine them into who they were meant to become. This awareness gives them an unshakable calm. While others panic in uncertainty, they find peace in not knowing, because they've felt how divine timing always reveals itself when the ego finally lets go. They no longer force outcomes or chase what isn't meant for them. They let go gracefully, understanding that holding on to what's gone only blocks what's coming. To them, chaos is sacred, it's the universe's way of cleansing the path ahead. They see it as the demolition before reconstruction, the pruning before growth, the silence before the song. They don't rush the process because they've learned that nothing real can be rushed and nothing real will ever leave. To see lessons in chaos is to see purpose in pain. It's to understand that suffering isn't the end, it's the awakening. Every challenge carries a hidden wisdom that can only be revealed through acceptance. The spiritually awake move differently because they no longer ask life for comfort. They ask for clarity. They're not afraid of falling apart, because they know what's falling apart was never truly them, only the layers built by fear, expectation, and illusion. They have walked through enough endings to trust that every breakdown is a breakthrough in disguise, and once you've witnessed that truth, you stop fearing the storm. You start dancing in it. In the end, spiritually awake people see what others cannot, that chaos is not the enemy of peace, but its path. The same way a forest needs fire to regenerate, the soul sometimes needs disruption to remember its strength. They walk through life with a quiet confidence because they've met chaos face to face and found grace in its eyes. They've learned that even in darkness there is design, even in confusion there is guidance, and even in pain there is purpose. They trust that the universe never wastes an experience. that everything, every detour, heartbreak, and loss is sculpting them into someone more aligned, more aware, more authentic. So, when chaos knocks at their door, they don't close it in fear. They open it with faith. They welcome the lesson, knowing that one day they'll look back and understand exactly why it all had to happen. Because spiritual awakening isn't about avoiding storms, it's about remembering who you are in the middle of them. And those who can see the lesson inside the chaos no longer live as victims of circumstance, they live as conscious creators of destiny. They see ego for what it is, a shadow disguised as self. Spiritually awake people have looked deep within and discovered something most never dare to face. Ego. They have learned that the ego isn't an external enemy lurking in the dark, but a voice living inside the mind, whispering illusions of control, importance, and fear. They recognize that the ego is the false self, the identity built on what the world taught them to be, rather than what their soul truly is. To the unawakened, ego feels like power. It feels like confidence and self-assurance. But to the spiritually awake, ego is the great deceiver, a shadow that mimics strength but thrives on separation, comparison, and validation. It convinces you that you must compete to prove your worth, that you must win to feel significant, that you must always be right to feel safe. Yet the awakened see through this illusion. They see that ego doesn't protect them, it imprisons them. It's not the guard at the gate, it's the cage itself. They've realized that ego is not evil, it's simply afraid. It is born from pain, shaped by rejection, and driven by the desire to never feel small again. Every time it tries to dominate, it's only trying to hide its deep-rooted fear of being unseen or unloved. So instead of fighting their ego, spiritually awake people embrace it with awareness. They no longer let it steer their lives, but they don't reject it either. They observe it with compassion, like watching a scared child trying to protect itself the only way it knows how. In this awareness, the ego loses its power, because ego feeds on unconsciousness, on reaction, on attachment, on needing to be somebody. But when you become the observer of it, when you witness its patterns without judgment, you reclaim your freedom. You realize you are not your thoughts, not your titles, not your fears. You are the one who sees them. For spiritually awake people, this understanding changes everything. They stop chasing recognition, because they know their value isn't something that can be given or taken, it simply is. They no longer seek to impress, because they've discovered that authenticity is far more magnetic than perfection. They no longer argue to prove they're right, because truth doesn't need defense. They have no desire to control others, because control is a sign of inner chaos, not strength. Instead, they live with quiet confidence, knowing that humility is not weakness, it's mastery. They have learned that the more you let go of ego, the lighter you become. The less you need to prove, the more you can simply be. They see how ego thrives on comparison, how it constantly measures, judges, and separates. It whispers, "You are better than them," or "You will never be as good as them." It swings between pride and insecurity, never satisfied. The spiritually awake step off that exhausting pendulum. They no longer look outward to determine their worth, because they've looked inward and found it rooted in something eternal. Their peace doesn't depend on applause, and their identity doesn't depend on labels. They can stand in a room where others compete, and yet feel no need to participate, not out of arrogance, but out of understanding. They see that the only competition is between who they are and who they were yesterday. To see ego for what it is also transforms how they view others. They no longer take things personally. When someone attacks them with anger or judgment, they recognize it as that person's ego crying for control, not their soul speaking truth. They respond with compassion instead of retaliation, because they know reacting only feeds the illusion. Their awareness becomes their protection. They know how to stay centered in the midst of conflict, because they've learned that peace is power, and that nothing external can disturb what is anchored internally. The spiritually awake also see how ego disguises itself as spirituality. They understand that ego can wear the mask of wisdom, it can quote truths without living them, preach love while craving superiority, seek enlightenment only to feel above others, so they constantly check themselves. They don't strive to be more spiritual than anyone, because even that striving is ego in disguise. Their awakening has humbled them. They know they are forever students, forever evolving, forever learning. They see that the real essence of spirituality is not about appearing holy, but about becoming whole. When you see ego clearly, you stop living from fear. You stop reacting to the need to control outcomes or manipulate perceptions. You become free from the exhausting cycle of needing to be someone. You understand that the truest strength lies in surrender, in letting go of how life should be and embracing what it is. The spiritually awake walk with grace because they have nothing left to prove. They've traded judgment for understanding, competition for creation, pride for peace. They see that life flows effortlessly when the ego steps aside, when the heart leads, and when the soul finally takes its rightful place in the driver's seat. They no longer chase validation, because they've learned that the world can only mirror back the love they already hold within. When you no longer need others to see your worth, you become unstoppable not through dominance, but through presence. And that is the quiet revolution of the awakened. They lead not with their ego, but with their energy. Their confidence is calm, their strength is gentle, their power is peaceful. In truth, seeing the ego for what it is doesn't mean erasing it, it means understanding it. It means no longer identifying with it, no longer letting it define your choices or your relationships. The spiritually awake live as observers of their mind rather than prisoners of it. They understand that the ego will always whisper, but they no longer listen as if it's truth. Instead, they listen as if it's background noise, a reminder of what they've outgrown. To see ego as a shadow disguised as self is to reclaim your light. It's to understand that beneath all fear, comparison, pride, and control lies one simple truth: love. The awakened live from that love, not because they are perfect, but because they've met their ego and realized they are something far greater than its voice. They are awareness itself, vast, infinite, untouchable. And when you live from that space, life stops being a battlefield for the ego and becomes a canvas for the soul. They see time differently. The present is their home. Spiritually awake people have stepped out of the illusion that time is something to be chased. They no longer live as prisoners of what was or what will be. To them, time isn't a straight line moving forward, it's a living, breathing presence unfolding now. They have learned that the past is nothing more than memory, and the future nothing more than imagination. The only place where life truly happens is in this sacred instant now. They move through life with an understanding that every moment carries eternity within it. While most people run endlessly toward what they think will make them happy, the awakened pause and realize that happiness isn't found ahead, it's found here. They know that peace doesn't wait for tomorrow, it blooms in the acceptance of today. For them, the present moment is not something to rush through its home. The spiritually awake have discovered that living in the present is not about forgetting the past or ignoring the future. It's about being fully conscious in what is. They see that the mind loves to wander, replaying old pain or anticipating new outcomes, and in doing so, it misses the only real experience of living. They've learned to gently bring themselves back again and again to this breath, this heartbeat, this conversation, this feeling. They understand that every moment, no matter how ordinary, is sacred when you are fully here. They look at a sunrise not as a repetition of yesterday, but as a once in a lifetime event. They feel the warmth of a cup of tea, the sound of laughter, the softness of silence, and they are aware of how precious it all is. This awareness makes their life richer, slower, and deeper. Time to them is not measured in hours, but in presence. They've also learned that the mind's obsession with time is what creates suffering. Regret anchors people to the past. Anxiety drags them toward the future. The awakened have seen both traps and stepped out of them. They know that healing doesn't happen by reliving old wounds, it happens by embracing this moment without judgment. They don't try to control what's coming or change what's gone. They trust that everything unfolds in divine timing. When something doesn't happen right away, they don't panic. They understand that delays are not denials, but sacred pauses allowing alignment to catch up. They've stopped forcing life to move faster than it's meant to, because they've realized that rushing leads to resistance, and resistance blocks miracles. In the eyes of the spiritually awake, time is a teacher. It teaches patience, surrender, and the art of allowing. They no longer see it as an enemy taking things away, but as a guide revealing what's next when they are ready. They see how every season of life serves a purpose, how winter prepares the soil for spring, how darkness gives birth to dawn. They understand that growth doesn't follow clocks or calendars, it follows consciousness. So instead of asking, "When will this end?" they ask, "What is this teaching me?" That question shifts everything. It transforms waiting into wisdom and turns uncertainty into trust. To live in the present, the spiritually awake have released the illusion of control. They know that control is rooted in the fear that if they don't grasp tightly enough, life will fall apart. But they've learned the truth. Life doesn't need their control. It needs their cooperation. The more they surrender, the more life flows. They've seen that when they let go of timelines, miracles happen naturally. Love finds them when they stop searching for it. Opportunities arrive when they stop forcing them. Healing begins when they stop fighting their pain and simply feel it. In surrender, they've found freedom. In stillness, they've found strength. The awakened move with a sense of timelessness. They can sit in silence for hours and feel as though only minutes have passed. They are no longer slaves to schedules or numbers. They prioritize alignment over activity. They have realized that doing more doesn't mean living more. Their peace is not found in how much they achieve, but in how deeply they experience. They understand that every second of awareness carries more value than a lifetime of distraction. And so, they slow down not because they are lazy, but because they are wise enough to know that the faster you go, the less you see. This perception of time also changes how they love. They no longer say, "I'll love when I'm ready," or "I'll be kind when I have time." They know that now is the only time love can exist. They give fully in each moment with presence, with attention, with sincerity, because they know that moments are fleeting and nothing is guaranteed. They've stopped waiting for someday because they've seen how many people die waiting for it. To the spiritually awake, someday is today, and later is an illusion. They've also made peace with impermanence. They understand that everything in life, relationships, emotions, seasons, even bodies, moves in cycles. Instead of clinging, they cherish. Instead of mourning endings, they celebrate experiences. They know that when you stop fearing the passing of time, you begin to truly live. The beauty of a flower lies in its brief bloom. The magic of a sunset lies in its fading light. The preciousness of life lies in its transience. They see that time isn't the enemy of existence, it's what gives it meaning. To see time differently is to awaken to eternity. It's to realize that heaven isn't a place in the future, it's a state of consciousness available right now. The spiritually awake live this truth daily. They don't wait for the perfect moment, they create it by being fully present in the one they're given. They've discovered that when you are truly in the now, fear disappears because fear cannot exist without the past or future to feed it. Only love lives here in the still, timeless presence of awareness. For them, the present moment is not just a place to visit, but a home to live in. They breathe deeply, listen fully, and move gently through each day. They understand that every breath is a gift, every second a seed, and every heartbeat a reminder. This moment will never come again, so they live it fully, fearlessly, and gratefully. Because the awakened know a truth the rest of the world forgets: life doesn't begin tomorrow, it begins now. They see unity where others see separation. Spiritually awake people live in a world where everything and everyone is connected not in theory, but in truth. They have seen beyond the illusion of separation, beyond the walls that divide hearts, beliefs, and nations. To them, life is not a collection of fragments fighting for survival, but a single, breathing organism expressing itself through countless forms. They look into another person's eyes and see the same light that lives within their own. They understand that every soul is a reflection of the same divine consciousness, wearing different faces, speaking different languages, carrying different stories, yet born from the same source. Where others see you and me, the awakened see us. They've learned that the space between souls is not emptiness, it's energy, connection, and divine intelligence. They don't just know this, they feel it in every breath. They see unity where others see division, because they've experienced the truth that all separation begins in the mind. The ego thrives on the illusion of I versus you, mine versus yours. It feeds on labels, identities, and comparisons: race, religion, gender, success, failure, all constructs that keep humanity blind to its shared essence. But the spiritually awake have looked past these illusions. They no longer identify with roles or masks. They know they are not the name they were given, nor the story they were told. They are awareness itself, the witness behind every experience, the silence behind every word. And once you realize that, how can you hate another when that other is simply another expression of you? The awakened live in this knowing not intellectually, but energetically. They've also seen that judgment is the birthplace of separation. When people judge, they forget the oneness. They forget that everyone acts from the level of consciousness they are currently in. The spiritually awake understand this deeply. They don't justify cruelty or ignorance, but they recognize that hurt people, and asleep minds act from fear. So instead of condemning, they choose compassion. They've learned that forgiveness doesn't excuse the past, it frees the present. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the recognition that we all stumble through the same darkness, trying to remember the same light. They forgive because they know that holding on to resentment only deepens the illusion of division. And peace, they understand, begins within. For the spiritually awake, love is not a mere emotion, it's the fabric of reality itself. They see that love isn't something you give or receive, it's what you are when the ego quiets. It's the underlying force that holds galaxies together, that moves rivers, that heals hearts. When they act in love, they are not doing good. They are aligning with the natural order of existence. They walk through life aware that every kind gesture ripples across consciousness, touching lives they may never meet. They know that the energy they send out, whether of kindness or cruelty, doesn't end where it begins. It travels, multiplies, and returns. This understanding makes them mindful of their presence, their words, their intentions. They strive to be a source of light, not because they seek praise, but because they know that when one light shines, it helps others remember their own. They also understand that unity doesn't mean sameness. The awakened celebrate diversity. They see the beauty in differences because they know that contrast gives creation its richness. Just as a symphony needs many instruments to create harmony, humanity needs many voices to evolve. They no longer fear people who think differently. They listen to them. They see that every perspective carries a piece of the larger truth. The spiritually awake have outgrown the need to be right because they value understanding over victory. They live from the heart, where connection matters more than being correct. In a world obsessed with division, they become bridges, quietly reminding others that we are never truly apart. The spiritually awake also see unity in nature. They sense the sacred intelligence running through everything, the rhythm that connects the ocean tides to the moon, the wind to the trees, the heartbeat of humans to the pulse of the earth. They don't see nature as something separate to be conquered or used. They see it as family. The earth breathes, the rivers speak, the sky listens. Everything is alive, conscious, and communicating. When they walk through a forest, they don't just see trees, they feel presence. When they stand beneath the stars, they don't feel small, they feel infinite. They understand that they are not on the earth, they are of the earth, not under the sky but part of it. This awareness changes how they live. They move gently through the world, leaving no unnecessary scars upon it. They respect life, not just human life, but all life. They treat animals with reverence, strangers with kindness, and themselves with softness, because they know that what they give to the world is what the world gives back. They've discovered that the outer world is a reflection of the inner one, and that when humanity heals its internal divisions, the external ones will fade. Seeing unity where others see separation is not about ignoring pain or pretending the world is perfect. It's about perceiving the deeper harmony beneath the chaos. The spiritually awake don't deny the darkness, they illuminate it. They know that both light and shadow belong to the same whole. They've learned to hold paradoxes, joy and sorrow, love and loss in the same heart without collapsing into either, because they understand that wholeness isn't about erasing opposites, it's about embracing them. In truth, spiritually awake people see that life is one great mirror, constantly reflecting back the state of our own consciousness. Every conflict is an unhealed part of ourselves asking for compassion. Every act of hate is love forgotten. Every wall built between hearts is a reminder of the fear we still need to dissolve. They see that when one person heals, the entire collective shifts a little closer to harmony. This is why they live with intention, because they know their energy is not isolated. It's part of the fabric of the universe itself. To see unity where others see separation is to live from the soul rather than the self. It's to know that beneath our different faces, we all share the same breath, the same heartbeat, the same divine essence. The awakened no longer seek to belong to tribes, they belong to existence itself. And that's why they move through life with such calm grace. They see the divine in everyone, even those who cannot yet see it in themselves. They love without conditions, forgive without being asked, and give without expecting. Because they understand the ultimate truth. We are not separate drops in the ocean, we are the ocean in drops. And when you truly know that, you no longer live in fear of others, you live in reverence for all that is.